Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthy, and today I'm very, very excited and honored to be interviewing a very special space champion and dear friend I met in one of my first few space conferences, Dr. Ekaterina Kostioukhina. She is a medical doctor trained at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine with postgraduate studies at Harvard University. Her current research focuses on exploring hypometabolic states, including torpor and hibernation in humans, through international and multidisciplinary collaborations leading to the founding of HIBERIA. She has served as a guest lecturer at MIT, teaching space medicine and crisis disaster management, and has provided training to military and intelligence agencies of various countries on critical global matters. Dr. Kostioukhina is a member of the Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Forum in Washington, D.C., an organization focused on advising legislators on pressing global threats. Currently stationed for a medical assignment in New Zealand, she continues her contributions from a remote environment while balancing her roles as a wife, mother, educator, and mentor to the next generation of innovators through university lectures, public engagements, and collaborative initiatives. When I first met Ekaterina in the space conference, I was blown away with her background in aerospace medicine, as that was a field that I was excited about pursuing as well. And so I'm very excited to share her inspiring story with all of you today and to learn more about her current research endeavors and her future goals. So welcome. Thank you so much for taking your time to inspire the next generation of aerospace leaders. I am so, so excited to finally have a chance to reconnect with you after a few years.
Yes, thank you, Gitika. The feeling is mutual, and I'm inspired by the young generation, such as you, because you're very young, and from uh, the limited space that you had available, you created an amazing environment that has impacted so many people. So it's a mutual inspiration. We mentors inspire the young generations, and you young generations keep us going and inspiring us to contribute and give more. So I'm very proud of what you have done, and I thank you because with your platform you have it will be amazing to learn eventually when time goes by how many lives you have changed. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. That truly made my day. Thank you. And to kick off our conversation, I wanted to ask about your current work in New Zealand. Before we jump into kind of your story and what led you to what you're doing, can you share a little bit about the research and your current endeavors in New Zealand?
Yeah, so well, New Zealand is a remote island that is quite close to Antarctica, so quite far away. And I love the picture that the New Zealand Space Agency has. There is a New Zealand at the very bottom, and everything else is the Pacific. And
Yeah.
more to the bottom, it's the Antarctica. So it's a very isolated couple of islands. So it's an extreme environment where the resources are limited because of the remoteness of this place. And despite that, there are plenty of people who are working productively, and these people need healthcare. So my role as a medical doctor in extreme environments is to provide that health. So I work for different hospitals that are rural and needing of physicians emergently. But at the same time, it is an important experience for me for my personal growth and also to be able to gain more understanding of a different kind of system. Most of my training was in the US, where the healthcare is of one particular manner and it has evolved constantly. But here I get to experience a more centralized healthcare like boots on the ground, not just learning from the books because that has been done, but from the nitty gritty to see what patients are thinking, what the doctors are thinking, how is the money distributed because those are the resources, and based on understanding all that, I'm able to provide something that is more tangible and appropriate to the legislators when I consult and help on advising how to implement better healthcare systems. So it's a very important experience.
I love that. Yeah, I know a big thing I always talk about when it comes to aerospace medicine is how we're able to develop, space enables us and pushes us to develop telemedicine tools because it is so remote. You don't have a hospital up there. So how can we advance technology to both diagnose and prevent and possibly treat diseases that astronauts face up there? Which can also translate into supporting for emergency treatments in rural environments. So it's amazing. I'm sure it's a great learning experience for you to be in that environment and to kind of learn some of the struggles and benefits and, kind of both sides of the situation. And so I'm curious from your experience so far, how has the healthcare system been different from your training here in the US and New Zealand? I'm sure it's very different, but there are probably
Very
similarities.
different.
Yeah, so how
It
is it?
was yeah, it was a big culture shock because, when I was training, I thought, well, they're like the guy when people will ask me, can you recommend a good doctor? And in my training at the University of Miami, we were trained on the standards of care. And I thought, well, all the doctors are the same. You just follow the guidelines and do the things and follow the algorithm. They present with this complaint and just do things by the book. But then I learned that that's not the case always. But also that in this different part of the world, things are done differently. The medications that are available are different because the government negotiates the medications. Um, in the States, for example, we have access to many medications that are at the forefront. So if somebody wanted to access them, they will be able to. Here, the government negotiates the true and trial things in order to help the most. So the emphasis is on not helping as many individuals, but being able to take limited resources and helping as many people as possible. So the emphasis is on things that are cost efficient, but at the same time that provide the most benefit for the money. Also, well, we there's a lot of using because there's a farmland around New Zealand is a well-known. It's the garden. It feeds us with the amazing organic food. This is paradise for me personally, also because it's like in those documentaries where they tell you this is how you should eat. We're highly enjoying that. But because of that, there are people who work there and they are in isolated environments. They require transportation that may not be accessible all the time. So there's a lot of air ambulance transport, or many times they have difficulty accessing primary care. So telemedicine is used a lot, but also different models of delivering medicine in rural environments where you take priorities. Those farmers, they're strong people, and it's fascinating. Also, they have different kinds of diseases. So quite different, lots of learning, and also lots of lessons from that we can use from space industry, from the space medicine industry, but also an analog environment where we can test those a bit more by providing the help that is needed, and then learn how to make it more effective for when we're in a situation like on moon colonies, on Mars colonies, traveling towards there when the doctors are not available. So it's a good circle of mutual learning from one environment to another.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, I've read, but it's never clicked to me that you're right. Like, even the medications are different based off
Yes.
government approvals, if they have their own drug administrations, which chemicals are allowed, which ones are not. I know certain foods are banned in Europe when they're not in the US. And so I'm sure it's very different in New Zealand specifically. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. So I'm sure you're on your feet, learning about this all the time and changing and evolving as things change. Wow, I haven't thought about that. And, apart from your work in New Zealand, one of the things about your background that I find super intriguing
Mhm.
is your work in policy advising. The work you've done with advocacy is a huge part of your role. And I know I mentioned in your introduction, you had an advisory role at the Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Forum where you were giving advice from your own medical background. So can you share a little bit more about this experience and what it entailed and what was it like? Was it productive? Was it helpful? Did they take your opinions and put them into action? I'm curious, what was your experience like?
The world of politics, it's quite challenging. So my personal learning point is by working with leaders in general, not just at the experience at the Parliamentary Forum, but also with other experiences in other parts of the world and politics in general. Have been involved for a very long time since college. That many times we criticize politicians and leaders, but it's important to understand that their job is almost impossible. We're tasking them with, changing the world and allocate resources, and we want this and we want that and we want universal healthcare. But do we even think that, do we know if that is possible? And if so, what is the right way to do it? Are there books on that? Is there scientific evidence on that? So the point is that you have people who have good intentions and they want to help. The problem is that many times they don't have the tools, because the tools are either not available because resources are limited, or they just don't exist because we have not developed them. And also, like, the other frustrations that people around the world have in medicine and in leadership in that healthcare field is that we're fighting against something impossible. We're fighting against death and disease. And so far, throughout history, nobody has been able to overcome that, no matter how much money they have. Not kings, not queens, not billionaires. They all have died throughout history. And even if we freeze them for eventually when things advance, and even though we have certainly made progress and the life expectancy is much more and we can do certain things, we're always pushing the boundary, and we're always complaining that it's like, oh, well, this person died again, or we don't have enough, or they're still suffering. So that's the reality that we need to be aware of in order to understand how challenging is the task, but also not to become frustrated with our own progress when we serve as those leaders, and when we criticize those poor leaders who are trying to do that. So it's a ginormous task. So as part of that, my contribution, I understand that it's not something we can accomplish in our lifetime, but we can contribute. So my goal is to be that advisor, because I have a lot of experience in medicine in the different systems throughout the US, internationally, and scientifically. So leaders who are in charge, they go to different committees, and healthcare may be just one small part of it, and they have to make strong decisions that will change lives, that will change the course of many things, how resources are allocated. So they need to have the best advice, the most scientific, the most reality based. That's why I feel that it's my responsibility to provide that way they can make the best decisions, that way we can criticize them less, right? So I've the bigger picture is that I learned that it's a challenging place to be, but at the same time we can contribute a step at a time. It doesn't have to be solving the problems forever, but if it will make a difference to a little bit towards the right direction, it is success. So we can all contribute: citizen science, citizen leadership, citizen politics. Instead of criticizing, use that energy to actually help.
I love that mindset. I think it's a different
Mhm.
perspective, and usually you don't hear that from non-politicians. So it's really nice to see someone in the medical field kind of understanding that side of the situation, but realizing where you can productively provide input. And I agree, they do have a tough job. So trying to come in as an expert to give advice that is helpful on how to achieve some of these goals we have, it is going to be a large force and a large task at hand. So yeah, thank you for providing that sympathy and that, perspective when we approach these, especially advisory roles that are starting to, open up. And so I'm curious, kind of the main chunk of this interview and really the main heart is learning about your story, and kind of what led you to do what you are doing today. I know when we met a few years back, I was just blown away with your experience and your passion and your enthusiasm for aerospace medicine. So I have to ask, what was the aha moment that inspired you to enter a career in the aerospace industry? Was there ever like a moment where you're like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of your life? And then we'll get into how you discovered aerospace medicine.
Actually, I was pondering on that, and it was a progressive journey. But a pivotal moment was in 2020 when NASA said they were hiring and they advertised it on social media. So social media can be certainly good if you use it right. Um, I applied because I realized that the requirements by that time, I had fulfilled a lot of them. I had plenty of education. I had um, good resilience as far as training. I've been, even though I kind of let those dreams of being an astronaut on pause because, medical school was tough. Didn't allow to think for anything else. But that was a moment when I realized, wow, I've actually reached that point when I can apply. But at the same time, I was taking a course at Harvard that is called Brain and Behavior in the Extremes. And a lot of it was about understanding what happens to the humans who actually go to space with lots of information because space is an extreme environment and we have a lot of data from NASA, especially because it is taxpayer money. It is done properly. So it's a lot of it is open. So a lot of information from the extreme environment of space. What happens to human in that extreme environment? And I realized that actually that called my heart more than actually being that human who goes and experiences those things. I realized that I would like to be the person who contributes to for those people, for those brave souls to be safe, to do the contingency factors, to do the countermeasures for them to go and explore safely to represent humankind. And that called to my heart much more than actually being the astronaut. Um, so, and also being an astronaut is wonderful. But I've realized in that class that it's like you reach a peak of achieving something so big, but then you usually reach that very young. And then we humans need something else. So we need to find something even higher. So once you achieve it, it's ecstatic. And the most important, benefit is when you're achieving it, when you're fighting for that unreachable star, when you have the dream, when you do that work, and when you wake up early every morning, when you do that, push that extra step in order to reach it. But once you reach it, you're left with something. Okay, now what? And I realized that space medicine will just you can do that forever. So I can be old and with limited visual capacity and bodies deteriorate gradually and I can still contribute to that. So I realized it's more fulfilling for me. I'll certainly appreciate experiencing what is it like because there's a difference between the theory or listening to what the reports are versus feeling it yourself. You're able to provide a better understanding, better insights, better care. So I would appreciate any opportunity to do that. But as far as my next unreachable star is space medicine in order to contribute to those brave women just like you in order to be safe because now we're realizing that that woman who will be going to this extreme environments, well, we need a lot of protection because of our reproductive properties, responsibilities that can be damaged significantly. So that is something that we need to invest a lot of effort in protecting. So that is my my stroke of insight.
Wow. And I love how you kind of answered kind of the aerospace medicine part too, because that's how your story really
Mhm.
began. Because you already were in this passion for medicine. And many people, I think we put ourselves into boxes, right? We're like, I'm going to be just a doctor, I'm going to be just a lawyer, just a politician, just a scientist. And you put yourself like, I'm going to do this only. But it was great that you were still open to learning about different things. And when you saw this NASA post, you were like, wait, like this is kind of intriguing. Like, let me see what this is about. And you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone. Instead of being like a traditional physician, you're like, I'll be a traditional physician, but I'm also going to add this extra layer that excites me. And I love what you said also about space medicine is like endless, right? It goes on forever almost because there's never going to be a dull day because space is pushing the frontiers of what we know, and it provides a catalyst for innovation. It pushes humanity to think beyond what we already have today, including in the medical field, right? Like we would have never thought about radiation countermeasures to the extent that we do if it wasn't for space and trying to send humans to Mars or send humans for a long time in a microgravity environment, we wouldn't have asked ourselves these questions. So I love that perspective of how space is pushing you to be a better doctor and also making you want to think in a more research way, a scientific way of answering some of these challenging questions. So I love that. I'm glad you saw that NASA post and you're talking about all that data because really social media is powerful if you do use it the right way, like you said. And I'm glad it shared.
Like you.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me a lot, like on LinkedIn. So it's amazing what it can do to one's career. So that's wonderful. And in this journey of you trying to discover aerospace medicine, did you have a mentor or a teacher or maybe like a colleague who helped kind of advance this dream of yours once you saw that NASA post and you're like, this is what I'm gonna do? How did you actually get there? How did you get your foot in the door in the industry as like someone from the medical field?
Well, it was quite challenging, and the story started a bit earlier because, well, the reason why that post attracted me is because I was interested in it before. As many kids, I wanted to. I was intrigued by the world outside Earth, and well, astronauts are the ones who go there. So I was like, well, being an astronaut is the right way to do it. So I went to the library, remember, and I would check out so many books, like as many as I could carry when I was a teenager, and I will listen to the advice and listen to what the astronauts had to say. So I found the mentors, not just people who were available to me in my environment because well I had a lot of challenges growing up. I was a child laborer, and I wasn't able to finish high school the conventional way because I was sent to work. But thankfully there was the library, and the library is full of those mentors. So those mentors, they put their information in an effective manner, and they like send it there. Like if we look at those books as those treasures, they condense their best wisdom for us to be able to take them when available. So I was very lucky to be able to access that. So I listened to all that advice, not just from astronauts but also from leadership, from like the success, the motivation, all that. That was very important in my journey because it allowed me to actually understand what is the pathway. And the pathway was, for the astronaut part, is to, first of all, regardless of where you are, like one is very young and one needs to get lots of degrees. So it's like, okay, delayed gratification, but you got to start somewhere. So that also led me to take the next steps to get into the educational system because I couldn't finish high school. I discovered that there's the GED option, and I was able to do it. So I studied little by little and got it eventually. And then, okay, what is the next step? And there was a community college. So one class at a time, one application at a time, and you just keep going. And then after college, you learn about more opportunities and just keep going because you know that you need to get lots of degrees. So that dream motivated me to get the education. But also, uh, well, my situation was quite challenging. But the other leaders, the other mentors, they advise in general because everybody has challenges. If it's not one thing, it's another. If it's not something that is quite big and impressive, it's another thing that's quite big and impressive. And we don't talk about these things because we prefer, to focus on the better things. But everybody has battles in one way or another. But in general, what one needs to do is just identify a goal and do everything. Like, what is the next thing that you can do today, right now, with the resources that you have? No matter how small is the step, what can you do right now? Like, and you have choices, even though they're limited. Do you eat this kind of thing or do you eat another kind of thing? Do you take the stairs or do you take the elevator? It's like all these things, they make a difference. And then little by little, it pushes you towards the better environment. So that was very, very, very valuable. So those are the mentors that I started with, and then eventually in the educational institutions, I had better access to, you know, more in-person mentors. At the college, I took all the educational extra courses that I could take. I took the leadership opportunity as much as possible. Education is power. Then eventually that led to Harvard, where in that course, I had an amazing mentor, Dr. Ivkovic, who actually, in a very reassuring way, guided us to the different resources. But not just the mentors who are experienced, also our peers. There's a quote that I love by our favorite women leaders who repeat quite often that competition happens at the bottom and collaboration happens at the top. It is it is a piece of wisdom that is so important to realize because that is what gives us strength, and not just strength individually, but strength to accomplish as humanity those amazing tasks. So it is about looking at people who are around you, and instead of feeling jealousy because it's natural, change that look of feeling, okay, how can we collaborate and help each other? How can I help this person? And they eventually, what can I learn from them that can benefit me and at the same time contribute to them? So it is about having that growth mindset, that student mindset all the time, because the world changes. So you cannot just say, "Oh, I got this degree, I'm done, I'm not learning anymore." And medicine reassures that you remember that because things change. So it is finding the mentors in not just a conventional way, but in books, in your colleagues, and keeping that open mind for information to come to you for that advice because it's quite important and valuable.
I did not know actually about that piece of your journey, and I truly am amazed with what you've been able to do. I love how you said kind of your library and those books were your first mentors. I think that's so beautiful. We always think of mentors as people, and to see you take advantage, even though you've had a tough upbringing, utilizing those resources, those free resources you had around you to give you that entry and to open your eyes to the world beyond is just, it's so beautiful. And so thank you for sharing that. I didn't know like how that was. And so once you got older, you started to realize the power of people and the power of networking and utilizing people who are both not older than you, but also your peers. And I love the quote, like competition happens at the bottom, collaboration at the top. I've actually seen that in my life as well. Like where as I've started entering some of these rooms, I'm like, people are so kind. They just want to work towards the same goal. And we can all become successful together. You don't need to bring someone else down to become successful. And so I'm so glad that you were able to find that community and to take advantage of those resources. I truly am in awe. And so you kind of shared a little bit of that obstacle that you had, but I am curious, like with this childhood of yours and growing up and becoming navigating this world on your own, did you have any obstacles in your life? And if so, how were you able to overcome them? Because many times one can look at your profile and be like, "Ah, she just had it, she just knew it, she's super smart, she has everything." I mean, it's so intimidating to enter a field, especially when they're individuals like you who are so accomplished. So, can you share some of those obstacles and how you, more importantly, overcame them?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why I love giving this, dedicating time to this um, lectures, to these conversations, is because, yes, right now um, there's still lots of things that have been accomplished, right? But it didn't start that way. In my childhood, I grew up in quite challenging times. I'm a survivor of human trafficking and child labor, which affects up to 50 million people globally, and the numbers keep growing. You know, 50 million people is a lot. So the chances are that each person knows somebody who is in that situation, but it's difficult to spot because it is an underground situation that is just out of control and has been happening through generations of humans and requires a lot of union. That's why also part of the Interparliamentary Intelligence and Security Forum. I'm part of the task force that deals with the human trafficking problem. So that is my experience there. When I was a child in that situation, I didn't know any better. I thought that, having to just work, be taken away from school, and doing the things that I was told to do were just part of my life, because that is what humans, they don't know what is out there, and they rely on the people around them to tell them. So when people are telling you this is how it is, you just do it. Until I learned, and through education, that no, this is wrong, and there are different ways of you know of living, that this was inappropriate. So even though I was in the United States in that situation, um, and it's something that occurs quite frequently in the United States, who is a major consumer for this kind of labor. Well, one great thing that was very useful is the library that was available there and provided that education, and then the better access to the community colleges. So the challenge was understanding that I don't have to be in that situation forever, that there is hope, and that there's something that I can do. The understanding that I'm not the empowerment that I can do something. So today, well, at that moment, I could do something with what I have, and little by little, I can get there, because that is what the mentors in the books were saying, that no matter the situation, you just keep going, right? And gradually, I will see the results also. So I discovered that no matter how bad was the environment and how bad it made me feel, how difficult, how tiring, there is still some empowerment that I have as a person. Because in that situation of slavery, you are told that you are powerless. But the mentor showed me that I could, with my small choices, with what was available, I could actually guide myself in the direction that I really wanted, that I identified. So that was very useful. And I consider myself quite lucky that I discovered education as a way of escaping into that world, because many people who are in a similar situation, be it in human trafficking or in other situations of distress, when their environment is quite challenging, violence or wars, famine. There's so many places, so many situations when it's challenging for humans, but many find ways to escape from that through, let's say, substances that are mind numbing, in order to not feel that. Some do it through video games, because it's all about escaping, like trying to numb the pain. But thankfully, I've considered myself very lucky that I could escape into those textbooks, into those physics textbooks, quantum mechanics, and those fascinating worlds of science that were actually not just, fascinating, but they were reachable. So if I kept learning about it, I could take a class. I could, become little by little, go towards the goal. So it was fascinating. And I feel very lucky that I was able to discover that coping strategy for my situation. And that's why one of my major advocacy programs is to advocate for the power of education, because it allows the short-term benefit of giving hope and for distracting the mind from the challenging situation. But also it gives you the side effect of getting an education and becoming stronger. So all that pain numbing led to, from GED to MD and even Harvard because there was a lot of pain. But, now I can use those strategies, that education that I got, in to help people, not just help myself, but also help other people with the skills that I acquired, but also with the lessons learned from that. Actually, this works. Like, forget alcohol, forget drugs, education, science, quantum physics.
I want to start off by thanking you so much for sharing that story because a lot of people don't share some of their toughest moments. But what I love about everything throughout this interview, I've noticed what you were saying is you've never seemed to like limit yourself. You never said, oh, I can't do this because I come from a certain background, or I can't do this because of my circumstances. You always saw everything as an opportunity, everything as a chance to go beyond. And I'm sure that was kind of like a natural thing that came to you. And I think that's so inspiring. And what you're doing to not only just seize education as an opportunity to advance your life, but also you're giving it back to so many people, right? You're in these advisory roles to take your experiences and hope other students either, can get there faster or not even have to go through some of those tough situations you did. And so really that's incredible. I didn't know this part of your story, so I truly am amazed by your grit, your perseverance. I'm sure it's not easy to where you are today, but it took a lot of self-belief, and I can tell from your story you really never said no to yourself, which I just love. And so even in your bio, I mentioned you wear so many hats. You're a wife, you're a mother, you're an aerospace medicine expert, educator, mentor. I mean, how do you do it with so many hats? How do you wear all of them? How do you balance this? I'm sure it's a lot to do at once. Yeah.
Yeah, very carefully. So I work a lot, but it's a strategic kind of work. First of all, I enjoy it. Like, I procrastinate working. It's like when I'm tired of one thing, then you do another. And also, you just align the goals, the mutual goals. So I set my priorities. I feel that for a person and a mother, the most important priority is motherhood, especially during those early. So my priority is being a good parent and have a good journey of motherhood and childhood with the children. Then also partnership. It's so important to have a good family relationship. So those are the priority, and then all the other things come, such as work and the professional endeavors. But then there are things that you can do to contribute to all three. Like, you can play with astronaut toys with the kids. You can go to the museums and you can learn science together. You can go exercise together. You can talk about these things and align. So it's important to know what are your goals. That way you don't get distracted and lose track of the balance. Um, but also that you see, okay, of the choices that you have, um, does it help me in those life goals that I have identified? Because it's not just about the goals that we think that somebody tells us. It's like, oh, you have a deadline and you need to complete it. It's, does this will this, when I'm old and when I'm in my deathbed, as the patients that I encounter a lot, when I look back, is this something that I will be proud of and happy saying that I did? Or like, what is the meaning of life? Or if I were to die today or shortly, like what happened with COVID, we all were faced with that question. Or in medicine, we constantly see people, young, old, we're reminded of death quite a lot and of the fragility of life. So it is important for me as a person with that experience to keep the eye on the ball, as my other mentors will say, of what are the important goals in life, and then align them, because those are something that I have identified as my beautiful experience that I want, and then the things that I do to it, it's to support it. So that's one of the strategy, to align them first, identify properly, align them, and then it's performance. So another one of my specialties, human performance, have to optimize that because I want to achieve those goals. I want to live life to the fullest. There's like so many things to discover. There's kids are quite energetic, so you gotta keep up. There's like so many places to see, so much projects and books, and you want the body to keep up. So you want to work with your body, and the easiest things is to avoid the things that damage it, like drugs, alcohol, and sleepless nights. Well, work sometimes doesn't help with that, but uh, healthy nutrition. It's that optimization of what your body's able to do, because we do have limitations, and no matter how much we want to do things, the body says, no, 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 I'm tired, and stops performing. The brain takes over, and it's it's not up to us, as to say. So we need to work with the body in order to be able to achieve those goals. So it's about supporting my machinery that is keeping that mind in there, that is housing that mind in order to be able to achieve those identified goals. So those are the main pillars.
Yeah, that's a very important perspective to have. Kind of relating it back to is what I'm doing related to my long-term goal, and also prioritizing what's important at this time and what's important 5 years from now definitely will change. So I think that prioritization is so important, and I always follow the kind of the same tactic and strategy. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that it's working for you because you definitely do wear a lot of hats. And so now that we're able to learn a little bit about your incredibly inspiring journey as well as your current endeavors, my last and final question for you is if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, and you're already so young, but maybe when you were in college, what would that advice be?
Zoom filters that 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 make the skin look young. Well, if I could just go back and tell that kid that was struggling and who didn't know the future of or what was possible, I will tell her, just you're on the right track, keep going, enjoy the journey because nothing lasts for a long time and you can learn from it. Even though times might be challenging, but also you can find beauty in that experience, in the challenges themselves, because they bring you an appreciation. Every time you discover something that is, that there's a lack and you fight for it and you achieve something, it's a benefit. This is one of the problems that many rich people or people who are born into success who didn't have to fight for it, they have a lot of depression, anxiety, drug problems because they haven't had the opportunity to like fight for those goals. We need that as humans. We need to be able to achieve. It's our part of our necessity, just as food. So having had that opportunity, it's actually a benefit. So enjoy that. Uh, but also, what I tell the young generations every time I teach is give yourself permission to dream big, because I've learned that again and again and again, even though you set up a ridiculous goal that sounds like, oh my gosh, unachievable, it happens. And the most challenging part is to actually, okay, find another one. It's like, okay, what is the next unreachable star? Because we need that. So give yourself permission to do that. Don't limit yourself. The major limitations that we have that scientifically that are discovered is not the limitations of the environment or external. It's internal. It's psychological. Those are the things that limit us the most. Otherwise, not just personally, but from the people that I've seen and like who are real, right? Seeing them achieve this fascinating things that sounded impossible is happens again and again and again. So it's scientifically proven that it's possible. So give yourself permission to dream big. And I like to end with a quote, like to tell the kids, well, the sky is the limit, dream big. But then the quote of space industry, they prove that not even the sky is the limit. Buzz Aldrin said so wisely, I know the sky is not the limit because there are footprints on the moon, and I made some of them. So that always gives me chills because it just shows how how wonderful life is and the possibilities that are out there that we just have to go chase that and pursue and just be alive.
That's a beautiful statement to end this interview, and I think it really embodies your spirit and all of our spirits, and I love that so much. I know I definitely will carry that advice with me. I also follow the same motto, which is like dream ridiculously big. Yeah, people will maybe laugh at you and think it's not a realistic career goal, but hey, you're working towards something that might become real one day and you're pushing yourself beyond limits to achieve it. And like you said, like once you achieve a certain goal, then it doesn't become so ridiculous anymore. Like I'm sure going to the moon seemed like, is that even humanly possible to millions of people back in the day? And now, yeah, like you said, it became a reality. And now even the sky is not the limit. And I love that because we always say sky is the limit, but really it's not. And I never thought about it like that. So, I love that statement. I know all of us, every person who's listening will expand their dreams. And like you said, regardless of what background you come from, you can't give yourself that internal barrier. Don't trap yourself. Like you said, a lot of our challenges are internal because we stop ourselves. And that's something I'm also working on every single day. It's so hard. It's so easy to tell, but I know it's something we all struggle with. And we just have to keep reminding ourselves that we can do it. We just have to believe in ourselves more than anybody else. So, thank you so much for doing this interview. Every time I speak with you, I'm truly in awe of your work and what you do, and just to see what you've been able to do these past few years from the last time we met, during the conference is really astonishing. And I'm so glad to have learned your story today to a deeper level because I didn't know a lot about your childhood and your first mentor in the being the library. It's so beautiful, and I can't wait to see all that you accomplish in the aerospace medicine field. So thank you so much for taking your time to do this interview. I absolutely had a pleasure, and I'm sure everyone who's listening is incredibly inspired by your story.
Thank you, Geetika. And also, it's the feeling is mutual. Just keep shining. This is your responsibility because there's so many people watching. You inspire so many. Just we're very proud of you and of your accomplishments, and it's the fuel that propels so many other people whom you inspire and touch. So just it's not even something that you have to do for the fun of it, but it's now
Thank,
your responsibility.
thank
Yeah, and thank you for doing this. Thank you for being yourself.
thank you.